all kind of, we all think the person at the top of the corporate ladder is a lion.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, we picture them sitting on this throne, just sort of surveying their kingdom with total, absolute freedom. But then this is wild psychological research suggests they actually live more like a deer surrounded by hunters.
Yeah, it completely flips the script on what we think success looks like, doesn't it?
It really, really does. Welcome to today's deep dive. We're so glad to have you with us today because if you think about it, think about the blueprint for success that society hands you, the minute you enter the workforce.
Right, the standard playbook.
Exactly. It tells you that the ultimate goal like the answer to literally all of your problems, your stress, your lack of control is to climb. You just have to climb the ladder, get the promotion, secure that fancy title, acquire influence. We are basically, we're culturally conditioned to treat power as this form of secular salvation.
Yeah, and the prevailing narrative is incredibly seductive. It promises that once you reach the top, you are finally free from the whims of other people.
Right, like you finally get to call the shot.
Exactly. You achieve this total agency.
It's presented as the ultimate cure for just the fragility of being human. But today, we are pulling from this really fascinating stack of research, psychological studies, and even some philosophical insights to investigate a reality that is, quite honestly, a bit darker.
Yeah, a lot darker, actually.
We're looking into why modern power might actually be the world's most overrated asset.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about how the throne overpromises, underdelivers, and in a lot of cases just ends up functioning as a golden cage.
Okay, let's unpack this. What exactly are we looking at when we zoom out on these sources?
Well, if we take the sort of 30,000-foot view of the material we've gathered, a very clear synthesizing theme really emerges, and it completely shatters that fantasy of unilateral control.
The reality is that power, rather than being this liberating force, it basically acts primarily as an amplifier of our existing character flaws.
Wow!
Yeah, and it operates as a massive isolator from genuine human connection. And just practically speaking, it is an incredibly high-maintenance burden. It actually restricts your movement far more than it enables it.
I really want to dig into that restriction part because the sources dismantle what they call the fantasy of command.
Right.
For you listening, just think about the image you have of a CEO or a president. You just sit at a massive mahogany desk, you issue commands, and the world just kind of bends to your will.
Like magic.
Right. But the reality on the ground is basically the exact opposite. They are operating inside this massive, suffocating web of constraints.
Yeah, and the phrase from the research that perfectly captures the mechanics of this is they call it the responsibility to control imbalance.
Which means what exactly? Because that sounds like a paradox.
It is entirely a paradox. The illusion is that your authority scales perfectly with your control over outcomes.
Like a 1-to-1 ratio.
Exactly, a 1-to-1 ratio. But the actual lived experience is that as your formal authority grows, your responsibility absolutely skyrockets, but your literal control over the systems you manage actually diminishes.
That is so counterintuitive.
It is, because you become a servant to the needs of the organization. You're suddenly answering to, a board of directors, to incredibly volatile global markets, to voters, to the daily shifting winds of public opinion.
And the psychological trap there has to be brutal. Because of that imbalance, you end up basically inheriting the blame for systemic failures that you literally could not prevent.
Oh, all the time.
Like a supply chain breaks down halfway across the world, right?
Yeah.
Or a market crashes, or a PR disaster happens like 3 levels below you when you take the hit. It kind of makes me think of an analogy. We think being the boss is like driving this sleek, super fast sports car on a completely open highway.
Oh, I love that imagery.
But reading through these sources, I realized formal leadership is actually more like driving a massive, sluggish bus.
I like that. And actually, to push that analogy even further, the kicker is that the steering wheel isn't even fully connected to the tires.
Oh, wow.
Your steering is actually being manipulated by external forces, right? Like the passengers yelling in the back are your activist investors.
Right.
The weather conditions outside are the macroeconomic trends you can't control. The pedestrians running into the street are your competitors.
So it begs the question, is unilateral control just a complete myth?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, yes. Absolute control is entirely mythical. Power depends entirely on external conditions holding steady. It relies on institutions functioning properly, on your followers remaining loyal, and frankly, on a massive amount of luck. And the sources point out a really profound philosophical truth here. Anything that relies so heavily on factors outside your direct agency is a very, very fragile foundation to build your life upon.
That actually brings up a quote from the text that I highlighted heavily. It's what I referenced at the very beginning of our conversation.
The deer analogy.
Yes. It says that powerful leaders are less like masters of their domain and more like deer surrounded by hunters. I mean, wow. Just think about that imagery for a second.
It's completely counterintuitive to how we idolize these roles. We idolize the title, right? But we totally ignore the daily reality of the actual person holding it.
Right.
Every single movement they make is scrutinized. Every decision is a hyper-vigilant compromise. Instead of achieving freedom, they are essentially operating in a constant state of survival.
And while you are in that state of survival, you are paying a massive toll. The sources actually call it the complexity tax.
Oh, yes. The complexity tax.
I think anyone who has ever managed a team or, taken on any leadership role will feel this in their bones. You trade what the research calls the piece of mastery for the noise of management.
Let's break down how that actually happens, because it's a really critical distinction.
Yeah.
Think about why people usually get promoted in the first place.
Right, because they're good at their jobs.
Exactly. They're really good at something specific. Say you're a brilliant software engineer. You experience that piece of mastery, that deep life, where you can just sit down, focus creatively, and write elegant code. It's fulfilling.
But then, you do that well, and you get promoted to VP of engineering.
Precisely. And suddenly, boom, the complexity tax kicks in. Your mental bandwidth is now entirely consumed by constant politicking, budget negotiations, and extinguishing 1,000 minor HR fires that cross your desk every single day.
You aren't doing the work you loved anymore.
No, not at all. You're just managing the noise.
Think about the gap between societal hype and experienced reality there. I mean, we expect total control, sincere admiration, and ultimate freedom. But what we actually get is this incredibly heavy responsibility with completely restricted movement.
And instead of security, we get constant vigilance.
Which makes me wonder if you are so bogged down by this complexity tax that you basically can't see what's happening on the ground anymore. You have to rely really heavily on your team for information.
Yeah.
But how does that work when you hold all the power over them?
Well, it works very poorly, to be honest. Which brings us to the social cost of power. Power fundamentally corrupts the actual flow of information. The research formally calls this the sycophancy filter.
Right. Because as you rise up the ranks, the quality of the information you receive just begins to rapidly decay. Like, people just stop telling you the truth.
Let's picture how this actually plays out in a boardroom, right? A CEO throws out an objectively terrible idea for a new marketing campaign.
Just a completely awful idea.
Right. And in a normal setting, someone would just say, hey, that's a bad idea. But in this room, there are 5 brilliant vice presidents who all have mortgages, kids in college, and career ambitions that are tied directly to that CEO's approval. So what do? They nod. They enthusiastically agree.
They mirror back whatever they believe the boss wants to hear.
Exactly. And they aren't necessarily doing this out of malice or anything. They're doing it purely out of self-preservation. But the end result is that the leader is suddenly trapped in an echo chamber.
Oh, wait, let me push back on this for a second. Because when I read that, my very first instinct was, well, can't a smart leader just bypass this?
How do you mean?
Like, couldn't you just actively surround yourself with brutally honest people? Hire mavericks, tell them to give it to you straight no matter what, and just avoid the echo chamber entirely.
It is a very logical question, and a lot of leaders try to do exactly that. But it completely ignores the structural reality of high-status life.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You can hire the most honest people in the world, but the very moment you hold their livelihood and their social standing in your hands, the dynamic permanently shifts.
Oh, because the power imbalance is always there.
Exactly. The isolation isn't just the result of, bad management or hiring the wrong people. It is an inherent psychological toll of the position itself.
So you developed this kind of underlying paranoia. The text actually called it the trust deficit.
Yes, the trust deficit.
Yeah.
When you hold significant power, high status just naturally invites opportunism. The psychological toll is this pervasive suspicion that just kind of sets in. It becomes incredibly difficult to distinguish between a strategic ally who is just being polite because they need a promotion, and a genuine friend who actually cares about your well-being.
That sounds absolutely exhausting.
When every single interaction is colored by someone else's desire for proximity to your influence, your literal ability to trust fundamentally atrophies.
And the sources describe the result of this as the golden cage of persona. You become completely unable to be authentic or spontaneous.
Hmm.
You are locked into a protocol, this very specific image that serves the hierarchy of the company or the institution rather than your own human needs. Like,
Yeah.
you aren't a person anymore. You are an avatar of the
And
organization.
if we take that reality, the stress of the complexity tax,
Hmm.
the isolation of the sycophancy filter, the paranoia of the trust deficit, and we ask how that environment physically and morally alters a human being over time,
Yeah.
the research gives us a very, very disturbing answer.
Here's where it gets really interesting and honestly deeply tragic. If you are stuck in this paranoid echo chamber, what does that actually do to your brain? Right. The material introduces us to what social psychologist Dietrich Keltner calls the power paradox.
What's fascinating here is the cruel irony of how we acquire influence versus how we maintain it.
Mhm.
Keltner's research shows that people typically gain power through highly prosocial traits.
Mhm.
You get promoted in the first place because you have high empathy, you are socially intelligent, you collaborate well, and you actively listen to others.
But the paradox is that the very possession of power actively erodes those exact same qualities. Like the very skills you use to climb the ladder are the first things you are forced to throw away once you reach the top. But why? Like, why does the brain do that?
Well, it really comes down to basic survival mechanics. When you are lower in a hierarchy, empathy and perspective taking are crucial survival tools. You need to be able to read the room, understand your boss's mood, and build alliances just to protect yourself.
Yeah.
So your brain dedicates a lot of cognitive resources to reading other people's emotions.
Because you have to. You have no other choice.
Exactly. But once someone is secured in a position of dominance, the brain essentially decides it no longer needs to expend those resources.
Wow.
You don't need to read the room to survive anymore because you literally control the room.
Yeah.
So perspective taking decreases. You literally lose the cognitive ability to see things from another person's point of view.
That is terrifying.
And meanwhile, impulsivity and self-serving thinking actually increase.
It is a literal hollowing out of the individual. And it is compounded by something the sources call the substitution effect. I really want to spend a minute on this because it hits on the core psychological motivation of, why people chase the throne to begin with.
It's a vital concept
Mm.
because many people pursue power as this sort of brittle bandage for a deep internal wound. Let's say someone is harboring deep insecurity, or maybe dealing with the echoes of childhood neglect, or feeling just a profound lack of control in their inner lives. They try to substitute external dominance for internal healing.
Right. They think, if I can just become the CEO, if I can just get everyone to listen to me and respect me, this awful feeling of inadequacy will finally go away.
But the substitution effect tells us the brain doesn't process it that way at all. A corporate title cannot hug you.
Right.
Power is a terrible healer. It's really just a distraction. It leaves the original void completely untouched. You get to the top of the mountain, you look around, and you realize you are still you.
Yeah.
The wound is still there, but now you have an entire organization's worth of stress piled right on top of it.
And because that void isn't healed, and because you are now insulated from honest feedback by that sycophancy filter we discussed earlier, the snowball effect begins.
Yes,
Yeah.
we see a rapid moral erosion. When individuals are protected from accountability by people who are just too afraid to tell them no, small ethical lapses begin to compound.
Just a little bit at a time.
Exactly. You might start taking small liberties, maybe objectifying people just a little bit, manipulating situations because you feel you have to in order to survive all the hunters surrounding you.
Wow.
And the tragedy is that many, many leaders arrive with incredibly noble intentions, only to find that the demands and temptations of the crown have literally rotted their moral core from the inside out.
It's a chilling thought. You spend your whole life working for a title, and the cost of holding it is your own character. So let's review where we are at.
Okay.
This state of power is highly stressful. It strips away your ability to do deep creative work. It socially isolates you. It makes you paranoid. And it literally rewires your brain to erode your empathy.
It's quite the list.
It really is. And you'd think, given all that misery, the one redeeming quality would be that at least it offers permanent security.
But it doesn't.
Not in the slightest. Unlike internal strengths like a skill you've mastered or your personal resilience, formal power is inherently fragile.
Because it is entirely contingent upon external conditions. Exactly.
Yeah.
Which brings up two psychological concepts the sources pair together perfectly. The status treadmill and hedonic adaptation.
Right. Hedonic adaptation.
Right. It's a psychological mechanism where humans quickly return to a baseline level of happiness despite major positive or negative events.
Hmm.
Much like acquiring sudden wealth, the rush of getting a new title or a taste of influence normalizes incredibly fast in the brain.
So basically, you get the corner office, you feel like absolute royalty for about a week, and then by Friday, you're just mad that the guy on the top floor has a better espresso machine.
That is exactly how it works.
Right.
And because power is inherently relative, I mean, there's always someone with a bigger company, a higher approval rating, or more influence, you find yourself trapped on this treadmill.
The game never ends.
Never. You require endless climbing and ever-increasing levels of dominance just to feel that baseline level of satisfaction. It is an exhausting, completely unwinnable way to live.
I love the perspective the sources pull from Stoic philosophy on this, actually, to offer a way out. The Stoics categorized institutional authority as a preferred indifferent.
That is a brilliant framework for modern life, honestly. A preferred indifferent is something that is objectively pleasant to have, like a nice sunny day
Yeah.
or a really good meal, but it is fundamentally non-essential to living a virtuous, happy, and fulfilled life.
Because it's temporary, it can just evaporate overnight.
Yes.
A market shift, a change in the collective mood of the voters, a scandal 3 departments away, and poof, your entire identity is gone. If your self-worth is built on that, you are living in a state of perpetual underlying fragility. So, what does this all mean? If climbing the corporate or institutional ladder is a trap, what is the alternative for someone who still wants to make an impact?
Well, the alternative requires us to totally redefine what we're actually looking for when we say we want power.
Okay.
The research makes a crucial distinction between dominance power and generative power. Dominance power is power over others. It's the ability to command and control.
Right.
But generative power is the power to create. It is the ability to build, to solve problems, to contribute meaningfully without needing to subjugate anyone else.
And the sources argue that the most satisfied individuals are the ones who intentionally bypass formal authority entirely. Like, they aren't looking for dominance, they are seeking the sweet spot of autonomy.
Autonomy is the true prize. It is the control over your own life, the freedom to live on your own terms, and the space to do deep, meaningful work without the crushing maintenance tax of managing a hierarchy.
It's the difference between influence and authority, really.
Exactly.
You can build incredible impact based on trust, based on your expertise, and based on your ideas, without ever taking on the rank that forces you into that golden cage. To bring it back to a final analogy, chasing formal power is like renting a ridiculously flashy, incredibly expensive luxury car that constantly breaks down.
Oh, I like this.
Right. It looks great to your neighbors, but you spend all your time in the mechanic shop stressing over the payments, and you can never actually enjoy the drive.
That's a great way to put it. And if dominance power is the broken luxury car, seeking autonomy and internal mastery is like owning a high-quality, perfectly tuned bicycle. It might not turn heads on the street, but it is reliable, it is yours, and it can take you anywhere you actually want to go, entirely on your own power.
And you actually get to steer.
Exactly. You hold the handlebars. That perfectly encapsulates this shift in mindset. Power is not inherently toxic, but its value depends entirely on its application.
Right.
When it is treated as a destination or a measure of self-worth, it destroys the holder. But when individuals treat power lightly, when they view it merely as a temporary tool for service, like a way to remove obstacles for others or enable growth, that is when it can be a source of positive impact. But it must never, ever be confused with your identity.
So let's recap the journey we've taken through these sources today. We started by dismantling the fantasy of command, learning that the view from the throne is largely an illusion of control burdened by the complexity tax. We saw how the sycophancy filter creates an echo chamber that basically isolates leaders from reality. We explored the tragic neuroscience of the power paradox, how the empathy required to gain influence is literally eroded by holding it.
Yeah.
And finally, we discovered that true freedom doesn't lie in authority over others, but in autonomy over oneself.
It is a complete paradigm shift for how we map out our careers and really our lives.
It really is. And for you, as you navigate your own career trajectory, as you look at the ladders presented to you in your own life, we want you to deeply weigh the true cost of the climb. Because choosing mastery over yourself, choosing to cultivate your own skills and your own character, is the only investment that is immune to market crashes and shifting opinions.
Absolutely.
It is the only investment that never loses its value. So, we want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to chew on today. Imagine that tomorrow morning your phone rings. You pick it up, and you are offered your absolute ultimate dream title, the exact position you have been working your entire adult life to achieve.
The pinnacle.
Right. Would you blindly accept it? Or, knowing what you now know about the steep complexity tax, the inevitable isolation of the echo chamber, and the moral erosion that comes with the crown, would you pause? Would you realize that taking that title might actually bankrupt the very deep work, the autonomy, and the authentic relationships that make you who you are right now? Something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey today. We can't wait to dive into the next deck of sources with you. Take care.